Welcome to the Dave Palma Show, the podcast that revives, restores, and awakens your innermost capabilities.
You have the training and the talent to succeed, but do you have the guts to fail?
I love what I do. When you love what you do, you want to be the best at it.
Today is about the power of you. You will change the world.
Find your path to success through the journey of those who have succeeded. And now, your host, Dave Palma.
Hi, welcome back to the Dave Palma Show. And with me in this episode, I have I will be speaking to a renowned facilitator and best-selling author whose work has been praised by the Nobel Peace Prize winners, Nelson Mandela and Juan Manuel Santos. He urges that even lifelong opponents and groups of people across multiple organizations, including those who don't agree or like or even trust each other, can reach a critical aha moment and move forward together. Adam Kahane, welcome to the Dave Palma Show.
Thanks, Dave. I'm happy to be with you.
Yeah, quite interesting work you're doing, and it is quite interesting that people you don't like, you can work together with them. I mean, I know. For me, I can relate to what happened in America. It's polarized, obviously, So your work is very, very, very relevant. What was going on, in the States, which is where you're from, isn't it? So
No, I'm from Canada. I'm calling you from Montreal.
I always make that mistake.
You're from France, right?
I'm from France. Well, actually, my dad's from Mauritius, but it's a French-speaking.
Okay.
Creole. Good. It's like saying, are you from Nigeria? Well, actually, my parents are from the Caribbean, but maybe originally from Ghana. Okay, that's great. Well, we've obviously got a debate going already. But I mean, obviously, with what was going on in America, not your country now, it's polarized and obviously more closer to you than me in the UK. So obviously your work is quite relevant. I mean, why would I want to sit next to, I don't know, the Ku Klux Klan and say, yeah, let's work together?
Well, you don't have to, and you may not want to, and it may be that you can get where you're trying to go just with your friends and colleagues. So if you can get what you're trying to get done on your own or just with people you like, then go for it. But I'm interested in the cases where we wish that was so, but it isn't, and we have to work with people that we may not agree with or like or trust, because that's the only way that we can make progress on what we're trying to make progress on. And I do notice that people often respond to this by going to the most extreme examples, like, surely you're not suggesting we should have collaborated with Hitler. So, I do have some experience in extreme examples, but in a way, I think starting there, it just makes the whole conversation a little bit, extreme. There's lots of cases, not just in the US, but also in Canada, in the UK, in many other places where polarization is increasing, and therefore it's getting harder to make progress on anything. And those are the cases that I'm interested in.
Right. Okay. So can you tell us more about the cases that you are interested in? What cases are they?
Yeah. Well, I'm noticing there's lots of situations in workplaces, in communities, in countries globally where we're stuck. And whether that's on huge things like climate change or Brexit or relations with our neighbors or getting things done with our colleagues, where people dig in and say, no, it's not just that you have a difference of opinion. It's not just that I disagree with you. You're a bad person. Or actually, you're the devil, and how could I work with the devil? So that's what I'm noticing is increasing stuckness. And my question is, what do we do when we find ourselves in those situations?
Yeah. I know with workplace stuff, and I got involved with trade unions, and even myself, to sort of deal with other people's grievances as well as deal with stuff for myself, and wider societal political issues as well. Got involved with, but I see what you mean about neighbours and some kind of like Brexit kind of issues, and they both. I mean, a recent issue, obviously with Brexit, it's the Northern Ireland border that's really like, let's work together, because we did make the Good Friday kind of agreement, So that's kind of what you're talking about, isn't it? It's a sticking point still for Brexit. They're still kind of, Joe Biden, he's Irish descent. He's still kind of like saying, yeah, well, I don't know if I should make a trade deal with the UK because of the administration, because of the...
Well, I mean, I watch Brexit from afar and notice the 50-50 split in the country. And I notice in many countries this increasing and dangerous polarization around COVID measures.
Yes, that is another one.
So
when you say dangerous, you mean you're obviously saying, well, actually people should take the vaccine. But I mean, I had a conversation with someone today about this. And I've, before you, I did a interview with a doctor. She's from Sri Lanka, but she was a doctor, or was a doctor in France. Mm-hmm. But she's saying don't take the vaccine because it's not researched properly.
Yeah. Well, that's not my understanding, but I wasn't right now getting into an argument about whether people should take the vaccine. But what I notice is the polarization and the disagreement is creating the result that it's very difficult to deal with this issue, and and to find productive solutions, whether it's to trade or COVID or global warming or relations in neighborhoods. And so what I've been trying to do for 30 years is find ways to help people work together across diversity and difference.
Okay, so how do you do that then?
Well, I guess the first choice is is to answer the question you asked right at the beginning. Do I need to work with these people? I mean, maybe I can achieve what I'm trying to achieve or get where I'm trying to go just with my mates. But what if I find that I can't and I'm stuck? And so my experience is that, setting up a situation where I can start by hearing from where other people are coming from, as I guess you did with this Sri Lankan doctor you referred to. Yeah. That's the starting point, rather than me just trying to give my point of view over and over, and I'm not really listening to you. I'm just waiting for your mouth to stop moving so that I can go back to telling you the truth about the way things are. How can I get beyond that and hear how you see things, where you're coming from, and can we find ways to move forward? Maybe because we found we agree, or even though we still disagree, are there things we can do to deal with a situation we're both concerned about?
Right. Yeah. Okay. I suppose really that is. I mean, if I got involved with, if I go back to my trade union days when I was a firefighter, I mean, at the end of the day, trade union seems to be a dirty word to things like high level management and HR when they don't like things getting kind of disruptive, like striking. But basically, it's a representative body. Yeah. But we did sit down and with, say, the chief fire officer and even the government or a representative of the government, or for that, like say for London, looking after the fire department or something like that, to solve certain issues, whether it's internal or external. we could bring it relevant. I suppose an analogy could be a lot of doctors, they were threatening, I think, including the UK, the consultants are now snowed under with a lot of backlogs of cases, of routine, like hip replacement, things like that, because they got held back because of lockdown. And they can't deal with it. And what they're saying is, look, we don't want to work extra hours. I know that was being said, and I think the word strike did come out, but I don't know if doctors ever gone on strike. But what in that situation, what you're saying is, look, sit down, rather than saying I'm not going to work out extra hours and this is really, I've piled up, and pointing the finger to the government, as unions and representative bodies do. I think in this case, it was the British Medical Association for the UK. What would you say should be done in that situation, rather than saying I'm not going to do the extra hours to get rid of this backlog?
Well,
what would you say should be done?
Let me go back to how I started in this work, which was almost exactly 30 years ago this month. I was actually living in London at the time. I used to work for Shell long time ago.
Okay, yeah, I know. And
and there was a group of politicians and activists and trade unionists in South Africa who wanted to use a particular Shell strategic planning methodology to think about the transition from apartheid to democracy. This was in 1991.
Right, yeah, I remember that well. That's right, yeah. I just joined the fire service in 1990.
Yeah, so you remember that Nelson Mandela was released from prison.
Before that, I was obviously protesting.
Yeah.
I remembered all the, the issues around that.
I remember that in London. Mandela was released from prison in 1990, and the first all-race elections weren't till 1994. And I got involved.
Yeah, and Maggie Thatcher stood down.
I got involved in 1991 with this amazing group of people in South Africa, black and white, opposition and establishment, left and right, men and women, trade unionists, politicians, business people, community leaders. And this really blew me away, that these people who had been fighting each other for decades, if not centuries, were able to meet and talk and not necessarily agree on everything, but have ideas and do things to try to make things better. So anyhow, this really blew me away. I ended up resigning from Shell and leaving London and moving to South Africa and marrying the project organizer.
What was your actual position there then? As a facilitator, or was you in management?
No, I was in the strategic planning department of Shell, which in Shell meant facilitating meetings of managers. And that's how I went to South Africa as a facilitator. And when I left Shell, I started doing that work full time. But the thing I noticed when I got to South Africa, when I had moved to South Africa and started doing this work full time, is that the people who really knew how to do this, for whom this was in their blood, were people from the trade union movement, or who had been involved in trade union negotiations, or from community organizing. So this idea, so I think the example you gave from the fire service is a good one, because this is a clear situation where, yes, we have different interests. Yes, we may not agree. Yes, we may not even like each other, but we have to figure out a way to make things work, because this is the work we do, and this is the jobs we have, and this is what we're trying to get done, fight fires. So I actually think there's a lot to learn from those trade union management situations, and those are often the people who really know how to do this. It's politicians and trade unionists know that, hey, I may not agree with this person, but we've got to figure out how to make progress. So to take the example you gave, I'm not saying that people should never strike or threaten to strike. I'm just saying eventually. What's almost always required is to find a way to sit down and work things out. And that approach of, okay, how are we going to move forward together, stands in contrast to this situation of increasing polarization and demonization that we see in the world. So my work as a facilitator the last 30 years has been, how do I support people who need to work together, whether or not they really want to?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I remember Maggie Thatcher actually calling Nelson Mandela a terrorist before, while he was still in, I think it was 1980s actually, when the Free Mandela song and everything came out. And also when the fire service, when I was a firefighter, we went on strike in 2002, and then they suddenly pulled out some, the newspapers, the really, I think one of them's they got rid of them. The government had to say no, they had to go to News of the World, but the Sun, the News of the World, started pulling pictures out of the Fire Brigade Union, saying, yeah, okay, here they are in Iraq, fraternising with terrorists and stuff like that. But what the point I'm making is that sadly, over the weekend, or just Friday, someone was stabbed to death, and it was deemed a terrorist attack, a politician from the Conservative, which is the more right-winged side of rather than Labour. And of course, rightly so, even my trade union, the leader there said, right, we've all got to come together. This is a terrible atrocity, even though the fingers are pointed at FBU as being terrorists, which obviously it's not true, but, they tend to look at left-leaning like that, left-wing leaning. And what the question was, that what I want to sit around the table is, how can we make it more safer for politicians to have their kind of meetings with their constituents, with the local people they represent? Do we need police officers? Do we need armed guards there like some countries do? And every single, trade union, Labour Party, Conservative, they all are asking the same question and agreeing with it. But it's sitting down, and is that the kind of thing where you could facilitate that, where parties would say, or is that just a good example where you could come together? Because, there could be some arguments politically where people are coming from, why it's led to that. Yeah. 5 years ago, it was the opposite. It was a white supremacist, if you like, that stabbed to death a Labour over Brexit. Yeah, 5 years ago, an MP. Yeah. So this time it's kind of more, where FBU has gone and sort of given support for Palestine and stuff like that, and it's more Middle East leaning.
Yeah, well, I noticed that, and it is shocking, and we've had incidents like that in Canada as well. And
France as well. Quite a lot of few.
So this is what worries me, is this increasing, not just disagreement. There's always going to be different points of view and disagreements and conflicts. But when it gets to the stage where, as I said before, it's not just that I disagree with you, I think you're wrong, and it's not just that I think you're wrong, I think you're the devil. And what do I need to do with the devil? I need to kill them. So that it's that quick escalation, and I'm not convinced that that simply having more police and cracking down more and going to war more is going to solve the problem. So what I'm trying to do in my work and in this book is to show that it is possible. It's not straightforward. It's not easy. It's not foolproof. But it is possible to work things out, with people who are different than you, with people who you disagree with people who you may like. And whether that's in a trade, the example you gave, the trade union setting, is a good example because it's been going on for so long and it's so straightforward. We don't like management, but we have to find a way to make a deal at the end of the day. Similar.
Go.
Yeah. So the extreme example, or the big example, is the meeting in Glasgow in November about climate change. We can all spend that meeting talking about those other people and the bad things they're doing, and the countries in the north that burned a lot of coal in industrializing, or the oil companies, or the Saudis, or whatever. But that's actually not going to get us to enable us to make progress in solving this problem. So this is the biggest example of the need to move forward together, even with people we may not agree with or like or trust. And there's been some good progress made in the past in the Paris agreements 6 years ago, but it's not enough, and we have to do more. So I think that those are the two sides of it. The demonization on the one hand that led to the stabbing you referred to, and the need to work together.
Yes.
That's on the biggest scale, what's coming up at the global climate change conference, and everything in between. So that's what I'm on about. Is those are the two choices: demonization or collaboration.
Yeah, no, that's quite interesting. It'd be interesting to see, because I mean, obviously the political kind of view on climate change changed since your recent president. Oh, sorry, not yours. I did it again. Since America's recent president. Your president's fine about that, actually. I think he's a bit more agreeable with the climate. And you've had some issues in Canada. Yeah, some wildfires going on recently as well there. So and in Europe, in Greece. But how would you facilitate this situation if Donald Trump was still president and Xi Jinping was also a meeting, say at a United Nations meeting, a very serious one, because now that this wildfire's killed millions, homes have just gone wiped across the whole, celebrities in Malibu and everything. And then so they're having this meeting now, and everyone's there from Europe. I forgot her name now. The Chancellor. She's I think she's not
Angela Merkel.
Angela Merkel. Yeah. And if it's to do with wildfires, in this particular situation, the biggest leaders from, trade union fires, internationally known, sitting around this meeting, how would you facilitate that? Because they would definitely, especially with Donald Trump there, and Xi Jinping is kind of like, oh, well, I'm doing it, but obviously they're just as big as America with pollution and climate sort of violations. How would you facilitate that meeting? Yeah,
I mean, I think it's an important example. It's a important example, and it's a difficult example. Because this is a situation where the two sides, or the different sides, don't at all see eye to eye, and none of them can solve this problem just going off on their own. And there have been climate disasters, as you said, in the U.S., in Germany, in China, and they're getting more and more every year.
Australia, everywhere.
Canada, everywhere.
And
and so, it's not hypothetical. There are people, diplomats, others, trying to facilitate agreement on this, and progress is being made in finding things that everybody can get behind. The challenge is, on the one hand, yes, we can very slowly make progress, bit by bit, a little agreement here, a little agreement there. But meanwhile, the problem is just getting worse faster and faster. So, you're presenting the most difficult case in the world, and the only point I'm making here is that dynamic, which can be seen so starkly at the global scale, looking at climate change, can also be seen nationally in the example you gave of the MP being stabbed, and can be seen locally in particular neighborhoods, and can be seen in particular workplaces, as you are recalling from your firefighter days. So the basic point I'm trying to make in what I'm doing and what I'm writing about is this lazy answer. Well, I could never work with those people. They're just beyond the pale. They're just Ku Klux Klan. I could never deal with them. I'm just gonna, stick with my people and try to beat them. Well, maybe that'll work, but maybe it won't.
Yeah. I mean, this is absolutely much different to teams rivalry against each other, as in sports, or And then when you work in teams in organizations, like the fire service or, hospitals and Shell, there's various teams. It's more of a collaboration. There's no kind of rivalry in that set. Well, maybe a fun kind of, for us, there's different watches, meaning, my shift is people I work with all the time. And then there's another one that works, and then we might have a little rivalry. We might even have a sporting football match or volleyball match, but we would also say, well, that's the watch that does this, but we do this better, in a fun way, Yeah.
But, so I like that example, and that's what we need. We're not the same. We may be different. We may have different identities. We may root for different teams.
Yeah.
But I don't know, I've never been a firefighter, but I suppose that most of the time, or at least we hope most of the time, we've got each other's backs, because otherwise we won't survive. And so that fire station dynamic is what we also need in these larger settings. I think that's a great way of putting it. How can we get what you experienced on good days? I suppose there were also bad days with conflicts amongst you, but on good days, how can we get that nationally and globally?
Yeah, I mean, a really, really bad case would be a manager, that sits in the fire truck. We call him the watch manager or a station officer in London, but you call them captains in Canada and US. But I got it right this time.
You're getting there.
There could be a captain who's totally against a trade union, and it's very heavily trade unionized, like the teachers union. It's really heavily. So now sometimes when you need to do overtime, meaning someone, you need someone from another shift to cover, he might be against that captain who just doesn't like the trade unions and wants to go right up the ladder to chief and says the wrong things, to really get people's backs up. And yet they have to work together, and you could be on that same team and that captain could be, upsetting a lot of the team. But that happens in sports as well, actually. Yeah. So how would you deal with that situation?
Well, I mean, I think I'm finding a lot of wisdom in the examples you're giving.
Yeah. And it's any organization, by the way, this could happen.
Yeah. So I think the first thing to realize is that these differences of position or affiliation or identity or personality, or rank or race or whatever, they're always there. So let's not live in a fantasy world where we're all one. We're not all one. We're many. So that's a fact. That's a fact of life. It can be fun. It can be grueling, but it's a fact of life. And we have to, most of the time, we have to find a way to work things out, because we can't just each do our own thing. We certainly can't in a fire brigade. And so that for me is the starting point. Recognize that it's always like this, and in all of the ways that you learned at the time, we have to find a way to make our way forward, even with people who we want to roll our eyes about or yell at. But we don't have the choice of saying, to hell with you, I'm going off on my own.
That's right. You can't do that in a fire.
No, exactly. So that's why it's such a beautiful
might not like
example.
The other person.
And I'm really struck by the similarity between your fire station example and the climate change induced fires. That are
well, it's just my analogy
world.
that I can use, but in an operation theatre with doctors and nurses, if they've had a conflict, for whatever reason, that does happen as well when they're working together. You can't walk off and leave that person you're operating on, even if you're arguing about what you should give them and things like that. I know you can't do that.
And that's why
it could be something like that.
That's why the example you gave at the beginning of the conversation about COVID is so distressing to me, because
the backlog of work.
Doctors and nurses and other healthcare workers are under tremendous pressure, And
Yeah.
we're seeing,
All kinds.
I don't know, in the UK, but certainly in other parts of the world, this increasing separation, this polarization over vaccines, over masks, etc. And people are saying,
right,
"To hell with you! I'm just going to do what I want."
Even in the medical profession, people are debating whether, it's a smaller minority, but it's probably 20% saying I'm not going to have the vaccine. And in fact, in the UK, they're saying, well, they did come up with, well, you're not going to come to work tomorrow almost, but then they protested and said you can't do that, and employment law came into it and stuff like that. But there is a debate, and then it's even, well, as I said, I've interviewed this ex-doctor now, but she wasn't, I'm sure she just went into coaching and does her podcast as well now. So, but they just have their views as well. There are doctors that do have differing views about medicine and how things should be approached as well, internally. I suppose going back to my example, because of the, I know the work I do, there is this thing called the National Joint Committee where there's a chief fire officers association that is a voice for the chief and the, people that are higher up in management. And there is the firefighters one, the fire brigade union. And then there is that National Joint Committee is also with the local governments that, like say London, Birmingham will have a politician in charge of that. So Boris Johnson was in charge. He was the London mayor before this. He was in charge of the London Fire Brigade and the police. So that committee is where you sit down, you have a meeting every year. So the trade union goes there, or the body for, members from each, all over the country, from London, Birmingham, the chief fire officers from each brigade, Sussex, Gloucestershire, whatever, they all sit down from all over the country and work together a deal on policies that's been, issues that's been brought up. So if there was a strike, that would be the NJC that would also be involved with saying, right, okay, we'll give you that pay then. We'll give you that pay and everything. Grievances are all agreed with those three together. But that doesn't happen in the fire station. Like I told you, if you don't like that officer because he did X, Y, and Z, the NJC isn't there to sort that out. And they could actually be renegade against what's already been agreed as well. Yeah.
So, of course, there's lots of ways of doing these things. And you've got in the fire station, the management procedures and the different groups, and in nationally or at the city level, you've got these committees, and that's all fine. I don't know enough about those examples to know what's good or bad about those. But what I'm arguing in this book is that if we're going to figure things out together, rather than just the boss telling everybody what to do, or Boris Johnson telling everybody what to do, if we're going to figure things out together, not just in big formal negotiations, but on an ongoing basis, then what's needed is more, is what I'm calling facilitation, which is somebody, doesn't have to be a professional facilitator, somebody, a manager, a trade union leader, a member of the team has to, or some people have to play this role of facilitating, which means their job is not to tell people what to do. Their job is not to solve the problem on their own. Their job is to help the group work together to find a solution together. And that's what I discovered 30 years ago, even in this extreme situation of apartheid South Africa, can be done. And I've seen it now all over the world, in the US on politics, in Canada on indigenous issues, in the Netherlands on climate change issues. If some people can play this facilitating role, then it is possible, even for people who see things differently, who may not agree or like or trust each other, to find a way forward together. And that's what I'm on about.
Yeah. Well, I mean, two examples, again, only what I can relate to, but it can, like you say, you give you a shell example because you know about that situation where he was and what was going on, the political landscape, if you like. And I'm kind of like not so subjective in it now, so I can talk about it and listen to. But an example of what you're saying is well, the first one's the strikes. The second one is about the riots, during the race kind of issues and during polarized America, and it happened in the UK. I'll talk about the UK situation in a minute, but with the strike that I was involved with in 2002, it kind of got to a deadlock. They just weren't agreeing. There's so many things that really got in the way of making a deal. It got confusing, and even the firefighters got a kind of like factionized, and some said, no, I won't be picketing, or we'll just stay inside, because then now you're losing your pay. It's like we're just relying on the donations and stuff like that, So it really got nasty. And that's a situation where I think they may have actually brought a facilitator in, because obviously the government said, oh, well, we're not going to do that. No. And I think in the end, there was a situation where it kind of got agreed, because, our trade union leader, if you like, the voice for the firefighters, if you like, so-called voice, because he, of the firefighters said to us, we got shafted, meaning even our leader.
Tell me this example of the race riots in the UK.
Right, so the race riot. There was race riots in the UK. Well, it wasn't really a race riot. It started off with a killing of a black guy in Tottenham in 2011, and then it sparked a riot in Tottenham, North London. But what happened was there's riots going on everywhere. But those riots, because the same in America, there was a little bit of looting, and it was actually deliberately so they could take stuff. But in the UK, what happened in 2011 was the riots wasn't political. It was, we're going to have these riots because we're in poverty, and we're just going to make these riots so we can steal stuff from the shop. They could see, and they was organising it with at the time it was a BlackBerry phone, but anything that's encrypted, I think like WhatsApp these days, things like that. So what happened there was that the whole world heard about this because I went to Cuba on holiday about a month later after the riots, and I was, working at that time in the fire prevention office. So we was working together with the police doing stuff, and my manager, was teaming up with the police, dealing with, joint kind of like fire safety and police issues in clubs and bars and stuff like that, because they had to get a license. But so he was getting the information, what was going on with the riots from the police as well. But to cut long story short, because I'm digressing here, the politicians couldn't do much about it. It's going out of hand, and they said, all right, we're going to hire a ex-New York chief to facilitate, to actually, he's had experience of all this stuff, to come into the UK for 2 years to work on all this problem, what was going on. Is that a kind of example? I mean, obviously the second of with the strikes with us, it kind of was more or less, resolved in the end with someone intervening. But
yeah. So again, I don't know I wasn't close to the details of what happened in the UK, and these riots and looting are terrible, and in some ways. But I also want to point out at least what somebody once said to me about earlier unrest in Brixton. This was back in the time I was living there,
1981.
That there's also this disruption or upheaval has also a good aspect, just in the following sense, that maybe in previous generations people would think they just have to put up with conditions that are terrible, and the fact that they think, no, we also have rights, and we're going to make our demands known, is in a certain sense a sign of progress. So I'm not promoting rioting and looting, but the fact that more people these days think, no, they have to listen to us. I'm not just going to take things the way they are, even if they're crap, for me is a positive sign. And so this is what I'm saying, is that in more and more cases, people are demanding to be heard and demanding to be taken account of. And this is why we have to collaborate. We can't just force things. And on the other hand, this tendency to, well, to hell with it, I'm going my own way, this polarization. And that's the tension that I'm dealing with. And yes, my my argument is that the way to deal with this tension, the way to move forward together, notwithstanding the important differences and disagreements amongst us, this is what requires facilitation.
Yeah. I mean, you got a good president, Trudeau. I hope so. Anyway, so I'm sure he's kind of all for having that kind of discussion where he could sit with Trump on climate change, maybe, and sort of say, well, there was one interview I saw him have when they asked him when Trump came out with a Bible in his hand, when one of the riots, demonstrations actually, it wasn't the riot, it was demonstration. And then he came out the Bible and it got criticised all over the world for that. And then when I asked Trudeau, he said, what do you think of that? And he stayed quiet.
Yeah. So, I mean, Prime Minister Trudeau has his strengths and his weaknesses. But I remember that time. And what I thought was important about it is Trudeau realized he didn't have the luxury of just saying, to hell with Trump. It's another very good example, like your Firehouse example. Yeah. Yes, they didn't agree on anything. They're political opposites, but they were leaders of countries that are next to each other, and so difficult or maybe even unpleasant as it was, they had to find a way to work things through. And that's my general point. We have to find a way to work things through, even if we wished we could just have it our way. Anyway, excellent. I think that's the point.
No, we've spent a long time. We could go on forever, actually.
Well, there's lots of examples, and the examples you're giving
I can only
really
give my
good.
own one analogy, and then apply it to everywhere. It's more applied, really. So, all right. Well, look, that's excellent. I'm really glad you come on the show and talk about it. Where can people? Okay, well, I've got one question I can pull out. What's one key idea you hope readers can take from your book?
Well, the idea I want people to take from the book is that it is possible. It is possible to move forward together, even with differences, with diversity and differences and disagreement. It can be done. It's not straightforward. It's not easy. It's not guaranteed, but it can be done. And this book offers a way to do that, which is why the title of the book is Facilitating Breakthrough: How to Remove Obstacles, Bridge Differences, and Move Forward Together. And I think the world needs more and better collaboration, and therefore more and better facilitation.
Certainly, as we've seen, and certainly from the UK's point of view in the last 4 years, since 2016 with Brexit and then the coronavirus, there's a lot of cases like that where you could, put loads of examples where this can be, your book can, what we've spoken about today can be applied, but we haven't got time.
Okay.
Where can people find your book and find out more about you?
Well, the book's available everywhere, bookstores, Amazon, etc. Facilitating Breakthrough, and they can look at my website, adamkahane.com.
Excellent, great. Well, Adam, it's really been a great pleasure having a chat with you about all this, because it's always good to have a kind of we call it mediators as well, but I suppose it's slightly different. But facilitators just actually making sure each side have their say, and is it like a referee?
It's it's sort of like a referee, sort of like a mediator, but it's the person who helps people work together. That's it.
We've got this program called Question Time, which you probably know about anyway. Which is it's a different host now, but it's a similar kind of thing, isn't it? Really, so facilitating like that. Right, Adam. Great pleasure having you here anyway,
thanks,
and
Dave.
Thanks a lot for coming and talking to my audience.
Cheers.
That's all for this episode. Thanks for listening, and remember, if you want to support what we do, then share, subscribe, and leave a review over on Apple Podcasts. Or head over to my website, davepalmer.com, and click on Rate Show. Well, that's all for now, but I'll see you in the next episode of The Dave Palmer Show.
Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.